Hey, welcome to Street Fight Radio. It's me, Brian Quinby, your host, Murder Brian on Twitter. What is all the other stuff Brett says? I don't know. I don't know all the stuff Brett says. You know, you can get as much of this as you would ever need if you sign up on our Patreon. You can get our zine. It's Street just go to Patreon and slash Street Fight or something like that. I don't fucking know. I'll tell you what, click the next show or the show back and listen to how Brett opens the show. Boom, you got yourself all the information you would ever need. But as you can tell, since Brett is not opening the show this week, that must mean that he's not fucking here. And the reason for that is we got free tickets to luxury boxes at WWE Fastlane this week. We've never been in a luxury box in our lives, either one of us. I gotta tell you, these luxury buys, they got something going on up there. But so we didn't do our call-in show, so we wanted to get a show out just to make sure that you got your 3 million hours of Street Fight a week. And so I decided after talking to him that I would have Sam Knight on, and we're gonna do a fucking episode of Street Fight, basically. How you doing, Sam?
I'm good. Welcome everyone to the #1 anarcho comedy.
How are you? I'm sorry.
Is my audio working?
You're back now. You're good now.
Oh, I was just saying, welcome everyone to the #1 anarcho comedy show on any station throughout the nation. Just trying to fill in for Brett.
How fucking funny is that like you're not every time I do an episode of Street Fight without Brett, the intro is really shitty like that, and then the guest comes on and does all of the work that Brett usually does.
I think it's just with the theme song. It's so rhythmic that it you hear it a few times and it's just in your head, sort of like that jingles from back in the day that you can never forget.
Well, this show is basically two guys that have the same jobs on their own shows. You know, we don't do that sort of work. We're not announcer types. We don't have to know anything. We come in and the other guy does all the stuff, and then we're like, "Hey, farts," you know, or whatever the joke is.
Yeah.
So I had Sam in this week because we were talking, and we haven't had any updates on what goes on in the White House on this show since 2016. The show has been, look, we never were anybody that talked about a lot of that stuff, but it is all important to know, obviously. And we like to peek our head in and see what's going on. And Sam does a show, the District Sentinel Radio, which I listen to get my news, actually, to tell you the truth. And they cover news. And so we're gonna go ahead and look into some of these fucking heels that Trump is working with that are running the government that I hate. So I guess we could just like dive right in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say, now that you've introduced Sentinel Radio, I should note that my co-host Sam Sachs is basically the Brett of the show, and that he always does the intro. So I'm with you on that one, Brian. I'm just sort of trying to space out most of the intro doing. So solidarity with intro spacing out.
Shit. Sorry, you cut out there. I like when Brett is doing the intro, I will be fully engrossed in like something I'm reading on my computer, because like I got 2.5 minutes here. I know how long he goes.
Yeah.
Roughly a minute 96 or a minute 56 to 2.5 minutes. And I'm like hitting my vaporizer, making sure all my drinks are all set up. I'm looking at news stories. I'm like reading whole stories. I'm reading Twitter. I'm doing all this stuff while he does it. And then he's like, "How's your week, Brian?" And I like my head just pops right into the thing. "Oh, I'm doing great," or something. But last week,
I feel like Brett then hits the vape or something himself. Like immediately then you talk for a little bit and give Brett a chance to like catch his breath and like, you know, take a toke or whatever packs he's working on.
What's really fucking funny about Brett is that Brett hits a bong through the whole show. He does
Jesus
not vape.
Christ.
He hits this big rubber black barrel bong. It's like a bong that's like a like kind of like looks like a barrel, and it's huge. And he fucking hits a bong like 7 times throughout the show. Roughly once every 10 minutes he hits a bong.
Brian, I had a bad bong experience recently, although it was kind of cool. So you know Nick Hayes, of course, the guy who does your video occasionally. Yeah. He came to DC and he was filming us, and I had a bit of a cough, and he wanted me to hit the bong for the video, and basically I guess I greened out, if you want to call it that. Like I definitely like just lost consciousness for for a few seconds, and almost spilled the bong everywhere. And it's on video, so that's pretty cool too.
He will get you to just do shit on video. He loves he got me the other day when he came to Asheville after he did that stuff with you guys, and I was sitting in the bar just having a monster meltdown because one, there was like 8 people there, and I just we're talking an hour before the show, but still like having a meltdown, like maybe these are the only 8 people that are going to show up. And then there were also some regulars at the bar, and this bar was like this kind of weird bar, and they were loud, and they were I would say like probably a lot more interesting to themselves than they were to an outsider, if that makes sense.
Oh man, I feel like a panic attack coming on just thinking about that.
Right. So there's no green room. So I go sit in a chair in the front row where the stage is. And I'm just sitting there looking at my phone and trying not to focus on anything. Nick's like, can I come over here and hook a mic to you and ask you a few questions? I was like, I'd fucking rather you didn't. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, oh, I guess if you have to. And he did. And I talked, and I just was like, I was fucking freaking out, man. It's so much easier to do those things like when we're all in the same place. But like, I think Brett was outside throwing up, and like we were the only 2 people that it was just us on that show. There weren't any guests. And it was just like we both completely fucking melted down for some reason. We do it every time, but yeah, it's so much easier when it's like a show with guests. Like we'll bring Nick with us a lot of times when we do stuff with Chapo, and we've had Nick with us when we do stuff with you guys, and it's like he can talk to everybody. But when it's just the 2 of you, he's like, hit a bong, do this fucking wild thing, and you're like, oh man, I'm not acting.
Well, I figured it would be visually cool, at least. And it's fucking hitting a bong. What am I gonna do? Not hit the bong?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Brett is our guy for that stuff. When we were in Chicago, we did the show at the Hideout with the Chapo guys, and there was somebody had whippets at the show. It was like, who wants to do a whippet on stage? And everybody, obviously, most of us were like, I'm not going to do a whippet on stage. And Brett was like, I'll do a whippet on stage. If a fucking guy does a whippet and doesn't even react, it was the fucking coolest thing in the world. I was like, he just knows how to do like he reacted. He was like, I'm a little wasted off this whippet, but he didn't like fall down or act like a fucking fool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. I'm a whippet virgin, so I would definitely probably not do it on stage.
Fuck. The only time I did it, I was in this weird guy's fucking basement, and he had a box fan sitting down, and like I just remember hitting it, sitting on the ground, then getting on all fours and knocking the fucking box fan down with my head like a bull, and then laying on top of it. That's like all I did. And then 5 minutes later, I was completely normal. I was like, what am I doing here?
It kind of reminds me of when I saw my friends do Special K, and I walked out of the room for 5 minutes, and I came back, and they were, you know how it is.
Yeah, that DMT shit is something like that, where it's like, I don't know if I like to fully 100% disassociate, Like I like LSD. I like I like mushrooms, and those can get pretty intense, but I feel like you're still sort of grounded in the world. But like whippets and like DMT, those things that are like they only even last 15 minutes. I'm like, I don't need that shit. I don't need to like see gnomes and shit like that. Like, I don't think I can't. I don't want to leave the planet completely. I guess.
Yeah, the thing is, it's so short. It makes it seem like it's something you can just do on your lunch break, you know?
Right, but it doesn't feel like 15 minutes, I don't think, when you're in it. Like I've been on acid where it's like, fuck, how long's it been? And you think it's been 4 hours and it's been 25 minutes, you know?
Right. But that's like if you're on your lunch break and you want it to last a really long time, like I don't know, maybe you should just do some salvia.
Yeah, just grab your DMT vape pen and go sit in your car. I just can't imagine you'd be able to return directly to work. I worked on acid at the pizza place at Chuck E. Cheese when I worked there. I worked in the kitchen on acid, and it was a little bit of a mind fuck, but I was able to like make it through the whole thing. So last week, the first guy I want to talk about, and because you mentioned them to me, is last week we talked about Sinclair Broadcasting, which is a fucking company out of Baltimore that owns pretty much all the TV stations.
Yeah.
Is that a kind of a basically correct? They own a shitload of TV. They like, I don't know if they're in every market, but they're in close to every market. And some of them, they own 2 television stations. Here they own 2 television stations.
So they're definitely trying to get in every market right now. And Ajit Pai, who is the chair of the FCC, has pretty much bent over backwards to try to do it. And it's pretty scummy. Basically, Pai started meeting with Sinclair executives immediately in the few days after Trump's surprise election. And he met with them a few times before he was confirmed and nominated and confirmed. And some of the first things he did were very much aligned with basically what was on their wish list. And for example, right before Sinclair bought Tribune, which I think you did talk about on your last show.
Yeah, right? A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
inelegantly.
So, yeah. So, well, I mean, whatever. Sinclair owns right now TV stations that reach 39% of U.S. or 38% of U.S. households. If they were to buy Tribune, they would reach 72% of households, which is illegal, which we'll get back to. So right before this announcement of this mega merger came out, Ajit Pai and the FCC announced they're going to restore something which is called the UHF discount. And I'm just going to read a little bit from a Politico article about this. UHF discount, quote, is a throwback to the days when the high frequency TV spectrum, the part higher than channel 13, was filled with low budget stations with often scratchy reception of analog rabbit ears. That quality gap no longer exists in today's world of digital television, but under the policy that Pai revived, the commission does not fully count those stations' market size when tallying a broadcaster's national reach. Now, this is important because Congress has basically imposed a cap on what one broadcaster's national reach can be, and that cap right now is 39%. So basically, if Ajit Pai were to apply this rule, this UHF discount rule that doesn't even technologically obsolete, it would allow Sinclair with Tribune, with their new Tribune assets, to reach 72% of the entire country. And the dollar amount of the deal is not that big in the world of business. It's only $3.9 billion. But as you noted, when you were talking about it last week or last show, is that these local TV stations have absurd amounts of soft influence.
Oh my God. Yeah, they change kind of. Are you there?
Yeah, yeah.
They do, like, I mean, here's the thing. Any Sinclair isn't just like fucking, they don't just own like AMC or something, like they don't own cable things. They own the shit that is going through the air. And that's, I think that's the thing that people get their hands on, where they're, I mean, the example we brought up, which is in our wheelhouse, is the wild overestimation of how much crime there is a direct result of local news. I don't know that you could argue anything else contributes to that as much as local news, or maybe fucking like Law and Order and stuff, but that's also on broadcast TV, you know?
Yeah, and it reminds me of Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine documentary, when he sort of goes over, like, does a super clip of all the local news stories and how they're just so insanely fear-based, and everything is something you should fear. Like, even when they're trying to do a good thing and do like watchdog journalism, it's like they make it like a fear thing, like this burger place is going to give you salmonella, and like it's crazy, over the top. And
I really think that the popularity of this give the drug dealers the death penalty thing is a direct result of local news, as though drug dealers are the people that are responsible for what is happening right now. Like they've been like, there are a lot of people who have lost people in their lives that are convinced now that it was the drug dealer's fault that those people got hooked on drugs, and not like a myriad of different fucking reasons that push poor people, or, you know, working class people to use painkillers. If that makes sense, you know, like there's a million reasons why somebody who works on a roof all day would want to use painkillers, or would get hooked on fucking painkillers. You know, everybody I know that's been on them were prescribed them in a period of time where it's been investigated and admitted that they were flooding parts of the country with these things, you know?
Yeah, and I bet if you were to check to see what sort of advertising space that Sinclair is selling to, I'm sure a bunch of pharmaceutical companies fill up their airwaves and their ads too.
Right. Well, and I never even saw the death penalty for drug dealers thing in any place other than local news comments. That was the only place I ever saw it until Donald Trump started to bring it up. And now I'm like, man, they're the last. I mean, I guess the user is the last person responsible for this, but it's definitely not some person who saw, oh shit, I'm broke, everything else is being sold at Walmart, I'll sell the one thing that I know that I can sell that Walmart can't sell.
Well, Trump is kind of like the ultimate local news comment president. I mean, today he was talking about the wall. And again, he just is so fixated on the idea that the wall has to be see-through. And it's just, it just seems like such, like, you can see this, like, sort of like, I don't know, like 2,000 word comment to some Columbus Dispatch story about why the wall needs to be see-through. And that's how Trump got the idea.
Well, there's a total Sinclair thing where during their news broadcast, they'll have some, you know, like middle-aged white dude, like a guy my age, stand up in front of like a screen and point at all the bad things in the world and like give you a right-wing version of what's happening. When we talked about it on Street Fight, or on the last episode of Street Fight, we were talking about how it's called the terror desk now. It's like the war on terror desk. When I was watching the news a lot, it was called The Point with Mark Hyman. And this guy actually happened to fucking work for the company. He was like on the board at Sinclair, and he would just come on TV at the end of the news and be like, these fucking liberals want to make abortion legal. Can you believe that? They want to make it. He would do like, you know, it was like all like the liberals, or he would say a problem, like, for example, like now he would say the opiate epidemic, and he'd be like, Republicans want to punish the people that are getting these people hooked on drugs, like the drug dealers, and Democrats think that we should just give them free heroin and let them live in a mansion for the rest of their lives. And that's the point with Mark, you know, like he would drastically get both sides of every issue wrong, but slanted in favor of conservative politics. And it's like, look, I've talked about this in interviews with, I think I talked about this in an interview with Mike, and Mike Magazine and a few other places. Like, if you're not a person who's steeped in that, I mean, like, luckily I know people who do journalism, and like I follow this sort of thing. Like I know you guys, and I know Alex Press, and I've met people that do this. You are convinced that it is like that this guy, this person that's on the news and is talking at you has no reason to bullshit you. Like that he's just telling you what is happening and how it is, and it shapes opinions. And when it's right wing, I mean, if you're not particularly sophisticated, like I was not, there was a time in my life where I didn't know what right and left were. I just believed what he said. Like, I was just like, well, this is on the news. This is the news. These Democrats are fucked up. These liberals and leftists are fucked up. And they're still doing that. Like, that's, they have not stopped doing that. And they're going to, and you're saying they're going to be in 78% of homes. Like, that's going to change a lot of people. That's going to keep a lot of people conservative, you know?
Yeah, well, see, the good news is that because it's so brazen, there is hope that it will somehow get struck down by the courts. And also, Ajit Pai, for a lot of the reasons that I just described, he's actually currently under investigation by the by the FCC Inspector General for basically for he's accused of basically carrying water for Sinclair, specifically for Sinclair. And I mean, that's kind of like in the Trump era, they say the quiet part loud, and I know everyone's been saying that recently, but it just makes for such great like slow motion car crashes, and hopefully this will be another.
I mean, he's so fucking unlikable, right? Like he like he's the guy that he's one of the only guys that stepped in shit and it stuck to him. I think anytime you say Ajit Pai to anybody that's even like barely paying attention, they're like, "Oh, fuck that guy! He tried to take the internet away."
yeah. I mean, it's to give you an idea of like how little he actually has a sense of how scummy he is right after he repealed the Obama era net neutrality rules. He gave a friendly interview to BuzzFeed Benny.
Oh, really?
yeah. There's like they did some stupid thing, like 8 things you can still do on the internet, and he was like, it was just like videos of him like with like a fidget spinner or something, and I
saw that. I did see that.
Yes, and people were just fucking going nuts, and as you would expect. And like how thick do you like, I get wanting to gloat to the conservative media if you're a conservative and you've just done a very conservative thing, but why would you go to BuzzFeed Benny?
Yeah, or what? I mean, even the like, who even knows if he was gloating? Like, he seemed like a guy that was so not self-aware that he felt like he was smoothing things over with people who were worried about it. It's like, no, I mean, people aren't fucking that stupid anymore that you can just be the chairman of the FCC and be like, look, I'm playing with a lightsaber on BuzzFeed. Like me now. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, that's what's been good about these teenagers fighting with these politicians and like not playing by the rules, and it bothers them so much. It's like, you would think they would have learned in 2016 that playing by the rules fucks you every single time. Like a guy like Marco Rubio hasn't learned still that when you start fights with people that don't have to play by your dumbass fucking debate club rules, you lose every single time.
Yeah, and we just saw the West Virginia teachers get something out of a wildcat strike.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fucking beautiful. We're
Was.
so lucky to get to talk to somebody that was involved with that, because I was just like, I just want to tell you people how great you are. So Ajit Pai and Sinclair are scum, but there's got to be other dudes involved in this administration that I can hate, Sam.
Yeah, definitely. And I picked out two other guys who are, I think, your audience will be able to appreciate why they're shitty, because they're shitty in very street fight ways. So I guess I could start with, or continue with, why don't we talk about Bill Emanuel, because we just talked about the Inspector General for the FCC. I guess I'll get back to that. So Bill Emanuel is he's a member of the National Labor Relations Board, which basically adjudicates labor law in this country, federal labor law, the National Labor Relations Act. So if you want to form a union and you accuse your boss of unfair labor practices, you take it before the NLRB. Their basically sole function is to rule on all matters involving unions. So roundabout late, it was December of last year, they voted to completely eviscerate they eviscerated an Obama era rule called joint employer. It was called the joint employer standard of the Obama era. And basically, what Obama wanted to do, one of the good things he did, although it was reversible ish, as you'll see.
Every fucking thing he did was reversible.
Yeah. But it was a really good thing, actually, if it was implemented, because basically what it said is that if you're a corporation and you even exert indirect control over a franchise, you're still liable for labor law. So that basically would have meant, to its logical conclusion, that McDonald's workers would be much more easily able to unionize, because instead of bargaining with each individual franchise owner, they would be able to bargain with corporate, which is something they can't do under current law. So anyway, Trump's NLRB rolled this back, but the Inspector General came in. Our good old friend, the Inspector General, came in and said that Bill Emanuel, one of the Republican members who participated in this vote, he shouldn't have taken part because his old law firm had challenged the Obama era standard, which was still in the courts. And so basically the Inspector General said he had a conflict of interest. He should have recused himself. And then surprisingly, this all happened really quick. And by February, they voted to reverse the reversal. And
I mean, it's fucking, the thing that gets me about things like this is like, nothing can ever happen. This is when you start to think, like, can anything really ever get done here? Like, are we ever going to figure, like, it seems like every Democratic president makes all of his rulings as though there's a permanent, gonna always be Democrats in power, or as though they're like, well, if you don't like it, you can just get rid of it after I'm out of here, which is not I don't think what people think they're voting for. I guess.
Probably not. No, but at least in this case, it's there's just comedy all around in the Republicans, like how they tried to repeal this and then just got totally owned on something that seemed really completely avoidable.
Can I ask, do you think it's because, like, a lot of these dudes just don't, like, they just don't know what they're doing? They don't know how, like, it seems like we've moved to this time where a lot of the people getting elected and appointed aren't politicians. And, like, I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world. Actually, I mean, it's not great, but it's like all the bad shit they want to do, they get in there and they're like, I don't fucking know. I mean, I guess I'll just do it. And then it gets, you know what do you think that that's because of, like, this like weird right wing populist wave where like dudes that own like fucking companies that import slinkies from China get a job and the thing and like being like judging imports or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's just he made a lot of fucking dumbass people. He put a lot of dumbass people in charge of things that are doing things that they'll never stand. Like that a court is going to reverse it probably most of the time. I mean, a lot of the courts are super corrupt, but
yeah.
Do you think it is like just really unsophisticated, like people? You've been in DC for a long time. It doesn't seem different now to you.
I mean, you hear stories about the Trump administration having difficulty filling jobs and people just like straight up not wanting that shit on their resume.
What about that wasn't there a 19-year-old recently that got like a really high up job? Fuck, I wish I knew. Like
they may have. I can tell you that a guy at HUD, Housing and Urban Development, was a Pizzagator, and they caught him. They found his old tweets about Pizzagate.
Fuck. Like they're just like Mike Cernovich really has a chance of being in the government. Like I mean, he's a little goofy for the government, but
yeah,
they're all. I mean, I guess
a little too high profile. I'd be more worried about Cernovich joining like some shadowy think tank where he just has like the ear of like of officials, you know. But even he's too stupid, I think, to pull that off.
Yeah, this 19-year-old Trump appointee, I'm trying to find him. He was like a lawyer, and I don't even think I don't even fucking think the guy passed the bar or anything. I think he was 24-year-old deputy drug czar. That's what it was. He hired a deputy drug czar that was 24 years old. He resigned after questions over his work history, namely probably the lack of it.
What was there to lie about when you're 24? I mean, like,
he said he was a 24-year-old former Trump campaign worker. He was appointed last year to be the deputy chief of staff at the Office of National Drug Control Policy, the agency tasked with coordinating federal drug control efforts. However, as the Post originally reported, Wynath had nearly no previous experience after he graduated college in May 2016.
Jesus.
This motherfucker graduated, worked on Trump's campaign, and then was the deputy drug czar of the country for like 10 minutes. Or that's like a real Scaramucci situation, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, like, just the entire, like, basically administrations, I think, start to take place a lot before actual elections, and presidential campaigns try to have some sort of plan, some rough plan about who they want where. And I just don't think Trump or the Republican Party had any expectation of him winning. That's part of it. And then that's also just sort of, I think, just exacerbated by the rank incompetence.
Well, he doesn't fucking care. I'll bet he doesn't care about most of these. So it's like it just is something that happens under him, you know?
Yeah. So he, for sure, I promise you, he doesn't care about the Ajit Pai stuff. And in fact, he's probably tickled by it because, as you noted, they have must-run programming. Some of that features Boris Epshteyn, who was a former Trump campaign advisor. So I'm sure he's fine with this. He would probably be insanely pissed if he cared about the NLRB, because this is so embarrassing for them. It is just humiliating. And part of this is the fact that, so the NLRB is a 5-member agency. It's got three members from the majority, 2 from the minority party. And they don't have enough Republicans on it right now because the board, the board chair, the old board chair, Phil Miskamara, he left, and so they're just in limbo right now. They have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. if this rule came up again, they would lose 2 Democrats to 1 Republican because Bill Emanuel has to recuse himself. And if Trump cared, he would be furious with this because it doesn't look good.
I guess even if he knew, he would probably, because I think of him, when it comes to like that 24-year-old kid, right, that's in the Office of National Drug Control Policy.
Yeah,
George W. Bush did the same shit, but he like sent those people to Iraq and stuff. Like he had them over there doing provisional government shit.
Yeah.
And like he made sure that they weren't somewhere where people would notice. And like they were more, that was a more sophisticated operation, I guess, than this thing where I think Donald Trump thinks that tweeting is being the president. Like, I think that like his whole idea was like, no, you just go out there and you say what you want to get done. And then a bunch of people go and do it for you. Just like when I'm at work, I say what I want when I'm working at Trump fucking Tower and I'm like, oh, I want a golf course in Scotland. Then somebody goes and makes a golf course happen for you. You know?
Yeah.
I don't think he was, I mean, he's definitely not a smart guy. You know, I listened to 2 guys talk about him for about a half hour at a tire store today. And this was an occasion where I would have my headphones in and I would be listening to podcasts or music or something. But as soon as they started to, it's just 2 like 7, one guy was 75. One, I assume was in his 70s. He had fought in Vietnam. And they're just talking about how Trump, like, I don't like him. Look, I don't like him, but I voted for him. I think he's better than any politician. Look, he's actually getting stuff done. And like, I think the people that voted for him think that like tweeting is getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Because they say shit. They were saying shit. Like they would in one breath say, these fucking sons of bitches are going to cut my Social Security. They're going to cut Social Security. And it's like, I mean, they can't do it without Donald Trump and the Republicans. You know what I mean? Like like the people that you voted for are the ones that are going to do it. It's not the Democrats doing that. I mean, I'm sure they would if they could figure out a reason to do it that's like woke or something like that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who voted for Trump just think that triggering the libs is like getting things done.
Right. Or like I heard him talking about like that maybe he's not the most elegant about things, but his foreign policy is really good. And they were, it's very weird. But they were talking about how like, look, nobody thought to talk to North Korea until now. Now he's doing it. He's a smart guy. I think he's a smart guy.
I have to admit that I feel like I mean, I don't trust him. I wouldn't trust him with a lot of things generally, but I would trust him more with trying to talk to North Korea than with trying to deliberately not talk to North Korea.
Right.
And the fact that, you know, he might be the first president and so to have face-to-face talks. Like, dude, who gives a shit? The Korean Peninsula has been in a state of war for almost like 7 decades now. You know, like maybe this isn't the worst idea in the world, even if he is a fucking clown.
Yeah, he's a moron, but like, who's he going to talk to? You know what I mean? Like the guy he's talking to is also kind of a moron. I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't think either one of them are particularly like great or smart dudes. And like, I always thought that posturing that was so and it's overstated. It's so fucking overstated that like Trump could tweet about China and then China goes on red alert. I think people fucking know that like there's a lot of things in the way of something actually happening, you know?
Yeah, and you're hearing liberals sound exactly like conservatives did when Obama was talking to Iran and talking to Cuba.
Well, they just don't want him. They don't want. I think that's more of them being embarrassed by him going out around the world. You know, he goes out around the world and acts like like, I guess the best word I can think of is he goes around the world and acts boorish. It's like a good word to describe the way he acts.
No. Neera Tanden tweeted that Trump was like, this is giving up, like this is surrendering to North Korea, which, like, it's the sort of rhetoric you expect to hear from like a far right, like England hooligan or something, like no surrender to the IRA or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big, like, that's like a Sean Hannity thing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Sean Hannity say he's surrendered. Obama has surrendered to Iran. He's given them everything they've ever wanted.
Exactly. Oh, they're giving them billions of dollars. No.
Yeah, he's a one-term president, and he's not hopefully going to get a ton done. I mean, the shitty thing is the way that he's emboldened law enforcement. That's the big bummer. Is like it feels like the FBI, the CIA, and local and state police and the military. It feels like and ICE especially. They feel so emboldened and so like they're doing anything they want. They're really laying a lot. They're kind of laying themselves out there because they know nothing is going to happen. There's nothing anybody can do about what the Columbus Police Department does or about what the NYPD or LAPD does, and any police department. There's like nothing anybody can do about what the FBI. I guess like the FBI is kind of unpopular, thankfully, for the time being, but I'm sure that changes eventually. Well, it's unpopular with Republicans. I think the Democrats are in love with it more than ever.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's unpopular for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
It's unpopular because Trump's brain is mush, and for literally no other reason.
Yeah. So there's one more guy.
There is. But I did want to mention before we move on, just that one of the beautiful chef kiss things, the chef kiss thing on top of the chef kiss thing with this Bill Emanuel debacle is there was basically the NLRB general counsel cited this decision to reverse the joint employer. He cited it in a case to stop a case against McDonald's. McDonald's has basically been sued by 900 people, 900 employees who had been involved in the Fight for 15 campaign, and they claim they were fired or harassed as a result of their concerted activity. And so basically, their Democratic lawmakers are putting pressure on the NLRB now to continue this lawsuit because the justification that they cited for it has been completely scrapped. So even if this only amounts to a delay, at least it's a few more months that McDonald's has to sweat it out, over what might come of this decision.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if it ends up being 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, it might be time to just sneak a shitload of stuff in there if you can, like.
Yeah. I mean, the Republicans still control the agenda, and Emanuel only has to recuse himself if the joint employer case comes up for some time. So, unfortunately,
I hate McDonald's, Sam.
Yeah,
I like their French fries, but I hate them. I feel like I could get better French fries.
Yeah, I eat McDonald's. I'm not gonna lie and pretend like I don't. It's fast food crack. I don't know what else to say. It's food crack.
It's like Reese's. That's what I always say about Reese's. I'm like, I don't know, man. I have to fucking eat those things. You can tell me anything bad about them, but nothing else tastes like it, and nothing else scratches that itch because I was given those when I was, 3. And I'm probably gonna eat them until I'm dead now.
Yeah.
So
they're so good, Reese's.
They are. It's not even peanut butter. I don't even know what the fuck it is. It's just Reese's flavor.
I think they just stir a bunch of sugar into the peanut butter.
Oh, I think there's other stuff too. Because they somehow maybe it's like a simple syrup because it's like a little bit wetter than peanut. Because I bought the Reese peanut butter at the store. It fucking sucks. It's not the same thing. It's completely different. It doesn't even taste like it.
I've actually put that on chunky Chips Ahoy and made cookie sandwiches, and it tastes really good.
That is fucking great. I was trying to make peanut butter cookies with. I had this whole fucking idea, and I don't remember exactly. I think I was making like a Swiss cake roll. I was gonna make a Reese, like I was gonna make a Swiss cake roll and roll it out, and then I was gonna
like
put that peanut butter on. Yeah, basically, and then roll it up like they do the Swiss, and then put chocolate ganache on it. That was my plan. But then I tried it and I was like, this just tastes like regular old peanut butter. So I put cream on it. So who's our next fucking asshole in the lineup?
The next and final asshole I have lined up is a fellow by the name of Mick Mulvaney. Longtime Congress heads might know him as one of the Tea Party guys who spearheaded the move to basically make the U.S. government default on its debt over just like a congressional procedural thing.
Oh, I love those. That was debt ceiling days. I loved that time.
Yeah. So Trump made him basically like the top, one of the top, if not the top, White House policy advisors as the head of the Office of Management and Budget. It's kind of obscure arm that has just like pretty insane amounts of power, especially if the president is just some fucking airheaded dipshit who doesn't pay attention to detail. But what was made worse is that Trump made him temporary head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
I know them.
Yeah. Ohio listeners will know this name, Richard Cordray. He was a former CFPB head. He dropped out. He's running for governor in Ohio. He had investigated some payday lenders. Okay, we can boil it down to that. We don't need to get into all the details. So he'd investigated some payday lenders, and Mick Mulvaney takes over on a temporary basis. And one of the lenders that gave Mick Mulvaney, as a congressman, $4,500 in campaign donations, one of those lenders gets news that all of a sudden the CFPB is no longer investigating him.
Just one of them?
Well, I think there were 4 specific investigations that Mulvaney dropped, and 1 out of 4 had given him donations.
Nice.
Years ago or whatever. But you know, it's I don't know, it's pretty standard stuff. But it got a little juicy. The details got a little funny, and this news just came out a few days ago through the Freedom of Information Act request. And I'll just read part of the AP reporting on this. On January 22nd, the company, World Acceptance Corporation, said the investigation had been completed without enforcement action. It also said CEO Janet Matricciani had resigned after 2.5 years in that position. 2 days later, Matricciani sent an email to what appears to be Mulvaney's personal email address to pitch herself as a candidate to lead the CFPB. The email was shared exclusively with the Associated Press by Allied Progress, a left-leaning consumer advocacy group which obtained the document as part of a FOIA request. Now, reading directly from the email, quote, "I would love to apply for the position of director of the CFPB. Who better than me understand the need to treat consumers respectfully and honestly, and the equal need to offer credit to lower income consumers in order to help them manage their daily lives." So evidently they were charging interest rates over 200% in some cases.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be the head of the CFPB. She also sent her resume, attached it. Like, I first read that, I thought she was joking, and then I clicked on, Allied Progress's had like the email and stuff, and she attached her resume to the. She wasn't kidding.
I mean, I know that the people that run those places probably in their heads have to tell themselves that they're helping poor people get money. Do you think? I mean, I feel like I buy that in a way because I've just been around so many people who look at ugly things and think that they're not as bad. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is for sure I think a higher percentage of like sociopaths in finance.
Yeah. It's
That
such a,
that there's that there was an interesting there was an interesting podcast. It's called Snap Judgment. It's an NPR podcast. I'm probably losing all my cool points or whatever cool points I had left. Uh, and one of the it's a storytelling podcast, and one of the ones they did was a guy who was a payday lender in Michigan, and he talks about how he slowly gets out of it and starts to suddenly think it's like it's kind of fucked up. And I don't know, that was that what you just said just sort of reminded me of that.
right. It is really like, I don't know, man. Like, I can see thinking, I guess I can see in a way thinking like, well, nobody's going to give these people money. And if I don't give them money, then, they're not going to have any, like, as your thing. But it's like, well, okay. I got a good example. The guy that I worked with at the deli, the diner that I worked at, hired felons, and he hired like, most of the people that worked there were felons, and he felt really good about the fact that he hired felons, but he treated them like shit and paid a minimum wage. And like,
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing. Like, so he gets to go around and be like, oh, nobody wants to hire felons. I'm a guy that fucking hires ex-felons. I'm great. And then once he hires them, he fucking treats them like trash and pays them $8 an hour to do hard work,
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it's a common theme in all aspects of capitalism. Like people say that they are giving jobs to undocumented immigrants and then abusing them and taking advantage of their status or lack thereof. Same with offshoring and bringing jobs overseas. People say, oh, you Western leftists will talk about sweatshops, but these are jobs in these countries, and we're bringing them like infrastructure and jobs and shit. So I don't know. I feel like this is just a standard mechanism that is throughout capitalism. It's just it's so in your face with this payday loan stuff, because all you can think about are loan sharks, and this is just like, it's all mafia shit, like,
you can't
this is
fucking
just really stripped down.
You can't fucking get out. I mean, like, I know in Ohio they made a few more tiny laws against it, but it's I guess it's like tightly regulated as fucking anything else is.
Well, here's another thing, and this is from a ProPublica story about world acceptance. Is that yes, there are state laws. A lot of states, like Georgia of all states, caps payday loans, but in states where laws barred such, and reading now from ProPublica, in states where laws barred such high rates, the installment lender loaded many loans with nearly useless insurance products that bloated the cost. Company boasted over 800,000 customers, part of the loan installment industry that claimed to loan to millions. 800,000 customers.
Jesus Christ. I did a place called CheckSmart for years. And like, I used to melt down thinking sometimes that they wouldn't give me the money, because I mean, I can tell you my exact finances at the time. I was making about $800 every 2 weeks. And my wife, I don't remember what she was making, but basically what we would do is we'd pay all the bills with my wife's check. And then I would take my $800 and I would go to the payday advance place and pay off the previous week's $500 payday advance at $575. And then I would have a few $100s to grocery shop. And, obviously I fucking bought drugs and partied all weekend. And then that Monday I had to go back to the payday advance place and get the $500 again. I wrote it into my budget. I wrote that $500 into my budget for probably 3 or 4 years. Every year in January, I would pay it off with my tax return, and then be back on it by March.
And I bet if you were to to run into Ohio candidate for governor Richard Cordray, he would call that the debt trap, which is what they called it at the CFPB when he was there. And a lot of people, like, they end up like getting into these cycles where they extend the loan 6 or 7 times when they only intended to just make a one-time stopgap thing.
Well, shit, they don't even like stop you from going to 2 different places. I know people that paid off one payday advance with another payday advance where they had to go to 2 different places in their pay period to make sure that they made it to the next payday. And it's like they started to pass a few more laws on like things like you couldn't extend them anymore. So if your 2 weeks was up, they just tried to cash it. If it fucking bounced, you were fucked. So
and the CFPB, because by law, when the CFPB was created, it was forbidden from capping interest rates, which is a huge concession, huge fuck up by the Democrats, if you think about it, because how cool would that be if there was like an actual like federal agency enforcing interest rate caps? That would be pretty badass. So, but this payday rule is just, you have to try to do some due diligence to make sure that whoever you're lending to like can like afford it in a reasonable sort of model of prediction or whatever. And Mick Mulvaney suspended it. Mick Mulvaney, in addition to doing all these stopping these investigations, Mulvaney basically suspended the rule, and they're not even doing that meager thing.
Yeah, I mean, aren't the Democrats also like fond of the payday advance shit? Like, I know that the big rap on Debbie Wasserman Schultz was that she was like in the payday advance pocket too.
There are definitely a few Democrats on the House Financial Services Committee who vote with payday loans, payday lenders. I feel like it's mostly in the House, but possibly in the Senate too, because right now, as we speak, this week the banking deregulation bill is going through the Senate with the support of 16 Democrats. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them there also were down with payday lenders.
It really, like, it seems like that is a thing. We joke around a lot on here about the post office, right? About like banking through the post office. But that seems like a really nice way to try to eliminate this payday advance stuff.
Yeah. Yes. And banking is, I mean, if you think about what the term utility means, banking should be regulated as utility. I mean, you wouldn't like today, you would think it wrong if someone didn't have running water or heat in their apartment. And how are we not arriving at the same conclusion with banks, where there should just be a minimal universal level of banking? What's really frustrating, by the way, is sometimes you hear Democrats talk about this issue and they say we need financial literacy. That makes me want to fucking light my hair on fire. That makes me want to just goddamn cut off my hand and use my other hand to take my severed hand and beat myself with it.
That kind of thing pisses me off too, because it could be so much easier and so much clearer what the right things to do. Honestly, like, I don't understand why I'm paying American Electric Power to bring me power when I pay taxes too. Like, why can't my taxes just pay for the fucking power too? And you know what? Now the internet, you can pay for that. Like, it's all fucking out there. But let's cut Spectrum out. Like, why?
They're parasites.
Yeah. That's exactly what they are. The shit's all here. I don't know how this shit works, but I highly doubt that they even put the goddamn lines in. I guess maybe they did, but it's because they got a contract. I'm sure they could have found somebody else to put the lines in too. But the banking industry is so fucked, and to deregulate it, I mean, like, because you think about when we're now talking about maybe the lowest rung of the banking industry when we talk about payday advances, but they're a real example of what these fucking people can get away with, and they're doing it on a really large. I mean, you think about payday advances ripping people off, and they probably are, but they're probably making a smaller amount of money than what's going on above them in the bigger banks. And people just don't fucking understand it. Like they can't wrap their mind around the amounts of money. Like the way I just talked about what I was making at the time and what I was doing. Like you could do that with billions and millions of dollars and nobody would know what the fuck you were talking about. You know?
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, and also Democrat support for payday lending, because there was a bill that last I checked, no, it only passed committee for sure. It hasn't passed the full House, but it passed the Financial Services Committee. And basically this bill was designed to reverse a court decision. And what the bill would effectively do is create a giant loophole in state level interest rate caps. And the reason they want to do this is because of what you were talking about, is because of investors in the payday loan companies and networks there. They want it to be, they want the money, the capital, to be able to cross state lines more easily and not have investors have to worry about getting sued under state level caps. And so a bunch of Democrats, a few Democrats in the committee voted for that shit. And it's pretty shameful.
Yeah, fucking, they're the worst. I don't even know. Like, I guess they're the ones. They're the ones that do the adult in the room shit.
You just need financial literacy, young man.
Yeah,
that shit is basically the fucking avocado toast. Millennials stop buying avocado toast. That shit is basically liberals lecturing you on financial literacy. That shit is the same.
When money, I mean, when wages are, the cost of living's up and wages are down. Like, what is financial literacy going to fucking do for me if I'm not bringing in as much as I need?
Have you tried making more money?
Yes, that is the salute. What is the other fucking salute? Have you tried eating iceberg lettuce every day for dinner? Have you like thought about drinking, water until your tummy's full?
Do they think financial literacy is like, well, if you just read enough books, then you'll make more money? And
right. Well, that is true. Yeah. If I read 10 books I read 12 books last year. That's why I make $250,000 a year to fill out spreadsheets. I have a skill that I have the skill of breadsheet. I said bread street. Now I'm so high, Sam. I smoked, like, I keep hitting my vape as we talk.
Damn.
But
I haven't smoked since right before we started, so I'm jealous.
Well, I got a vape. I can just sit here and do it. It's sitting in front of me. I look at it. The other night, you want to hear something real fucking cool? I have this PAX, right? And I go to this wrestling show, and it's one of the ones where you got to walk through a fucking metal detector. And the PAX is metal. I took it out of my pocket and just put it in the thing with everything else in my pocket, and they didn't even know what it was, and they just let me walk right in with it.
It's amazing. Well, I'm sure you could have just been like, "Oh, this is a tobacco vape," and they would be like, "Just don't smoke it inside" or something.
My idea was to call it a lighter thing. It's a lighter thing, like a light thing.
This is a battery for my phone, an external battery.
Yeah. I was like, as I was walking up, I was like, I'm gonna put this fucking thing in my shoe. And Brett was like, they fucking are gonna hit you with a metal detector. And I was like, fine, I'm just gonna stick it on the thing. I'm going to a luxury box anyway. Actually, kind of part of me thought, I'm sitting in an executive suite. They're not even gonna search me.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad inclination. That's not a wrong inclination, I don't think.
The executive suites are like, man, have you ever been in an executive suite at anything?
Yeah, actually, yes, I have. And man, they're fucking nice.
That is capital. That is where you know what class, where you stand in the class hierarchy. Because man, I have been, I don't think been to concerts at the Nationwide Arena, and I've been to Blue Jackets games. But last Sunday we went to a wrestling pay-per-view, and it's the first time I had ever been in the suites. And I walk in there, and it's fucking free food. They have free pizza, free wings, free popcorn, free chips, a fucking refrigerator where the people that were in the box with me were drinking champagne out of the bottle while they watch professional wrestling in these big leather chairs. And I was just like, it's fucking not fair that we get to sit here and then everybody down there that paid 200 and like none of us even fucking paid to get in. None of the people sitting in there paid any money to get in. And the people sitting in the chair, I looked at the prices of these tickets, dude, and it was like the people sitting directly in front of me paid $250 a ticket to see this thing.
Damn. Yeah. That was the box just owned by some corporation and no one wanted to go to the wrestling or something.
Well, no, this one was full. Actually, this box was full, but the other ones were, it's a bar. It's a company that owns a bunch of bars in town. So everybody, was into going to wrestling, but you could tell that there were a lot of other luxury boxes that were very sparse. But Brett and I are sitting up there during the show at one point, just talking about how like, these fucking guys go to these hockey games that are like the hugest part of a regular person's month. And they go to these hockey games and they sit in a chair and watch it on a TV in the box and talk about business deals and shit. Like they don't even fucking watch the game. They just are there and they get everything fucking handed to them. And it makes me hate them even more.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so yeah, I have been in a luxury box at a hockey game when I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade or something. So I was too young to drink, unfortunately, but I was fucking stoked about the food. And I think I remember being really stoked about the fact that I could take off my shoes.
Yeah, there's a dude. There was a bathroom in the one we were in. Like we had our own private bathroom.
Yeah, like I remember also after the game, we're like, can we just stay here as long as possible?
I really like, I went to 2 free shows last week and I was just the whole time thinking about how unfair it is that like I was fucking taking out payday advances to buy concert tickets 15 years ago, and now people just are like, you want to come to this concert? And they put me on the list and I'm like, I should have fucking been getting this. Like, I hate that we all like, because ticket prices are fucking crazy now for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking in a chat that I'm in about wrestling about how we charge $5 if we can, $10 in New York or in maybe DC, like a few other places we've charged $10.
You should charge 10 in DC. I'll tell you that much. You're good charging 10 here.
And people in the chat, I mean, when I've had this conversation with other people that like, if you don't charge something, then people will think it's not important. But if you charge too much, I don't want a barrier to entry is how I feel. So it's kind of like $5 I think is fair if I'm driving to your fucking city and doing a show for you and hanging out with you afterwards. I think $10 is fair. But I'd be afraid that once I got to 15 or 20, people would freak out. But then like my daughter, I'm taking her to see some fucking YouTubers next week.
Oh, no, Logan Paul.
No. This is a more Annie. God damn it. I keep forgetting her name. Annie something. She's a big deal. She's a big fucking deal. Okay. I don't even know if she sings, by the way. Like, I don't know what we're going to actually see. Annie LeBlanc is her name. You can look her up later. She's like 15 years old. She's famous and she goes on YouTube, but I'm taking her to see that. It's fucking $35 to get in there. And
Jesus Christ.
$35 for each of us. I'm paying $70 to go see somebody from YouTube. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I go to the movies and I'm spending $40 there. Like, I don't even know what you can do if you don't have money now. You know,
Christ, she's only 13 years old.
Yeah, I believe she's 13 or 14, and it's $35 to get in. And like I said, I'm not even 100% sure she sings. I think she might sing, but I don't even know what she sings. I don't know what we're going to see, is what I'm telling you. It's called the Rock Your Hair Tour. And I don't think my daughter knows what we're going to see. She's just fucking amped about it. And she's so excited to go. So I'm going to take her. But I look at those prices and I'm like, can anybody fucking afford to do anything anymore? Well, I mean, when I was a kid, it went to everything I went and saw probably went to about $25. I remember Ozfest was like $25 to $35. And $35 is the lowest price that I've seen for a lot of stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like one of those memes where it's like you have $100 to spend on a show. Boom, you're spending all your money on Annie LeBlanc. Sorry.
yeah, for sure. Well, that's the kid. I mean, you got a kid and they get your money. I went through it today. We went to she ripped a hole in a pair of leggings, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how much are leggings? And she's like, $25 or so, no more than $25. I was like, fine, let's go get you some leggings. And we went and she got $55 out of me. She got $55 pair of pants out of me. The deal. And I'm just like, just teens know how to get in your wallet.
Yeah, they do.
Traditional dad problems, Sam. That's just what I go through. Well, let's see. I don't know if I have really anything else. I had
Oh, I have something else.
Okay.
Because you were talking about the hockey game, it reminded me of a story I have, which I mean, like, basically, if you're out in public, you should be careful about telling these stories and who you're sitting next to, because you might be an annoying piece of shit, and they might share it one day on a podcast. But
what'd you do at a hockey? Oh,
it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Okay.
So you were talking about all those, like, the guys in suits who go to hockey games, and they start they're watching TV. They're not even talking about the game. I sat next to once at a hockey game, like with my family, and the guy behind us was like a fucking Marco Rubio staffer who just like would not stop talking about like how it was hard to impregnate his wife.
Jesus. At a hockey game?
Yes.
Was he in regular seats? Were you in regular seats at that time?
We were pretty close to the ice. So they technically they were regular. They're expensive seats. And
nice.
I think there's just this culture in DC of and I guess everywhere. I mean, anywhere where you have professional sports, it's going to attract an elite, class of people who can afford to blow like $300 on a whim or whatever.
I mean, shit, that's who they want. It seems like who they want there. That seems like they don't want anybody else there except for rich people.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like, well, not really sad, but I guess it's just kind of annoying. But if you go to a Washington Capitals game, I feel like you'll see a lot of the lower bowl just like talking amongst themselves, like fucking constantly throughout the game. And not if it's like a playoff game, but like, in the earlier part of the season. But still, man, I mean, that shit should be for fans,
Yeah, wrestling's the same way. You'll see guys that paid $1,000 for their seats looking at their phone during the show, and you're like, you can see them on you're like sitting at your house fucking watching this on TV, and this guy's sitting 5 feet away from the ring and he's staring at his phone, and you're like, you motherfucker, you don't value anything.
Yeah, so the lesson of the story is, if you are going to be one of those assholes, don't be a Marco Rubio staffer who's talking about how it's hard to get your wife preggo, because someone will talk about it on a podcast.
That's good though. It's good that we got him. Marco Rubio is in the deepest shit right now. I just saw it today, and my kid's been shit talking him. My kid is shit talking Marco Rubio.
You fucking take on the teens. You got to take on all of them at once.
I know I don't know why these guys think that they can win, especially like online. I saw a bunch of conservatives freaking out yesterday because that David Hogg guy made a video making fun of them for thinking he's a crisis actor. Like he made a video trolling them, saying that he was a crisis actor, and it showed up on a bunch of pages. Like he's not even sad.
It's amazing because these same people were like freaking out a lot of the chattering classes in the political establishment, and now they're up against literally a teenager who actually knows how to deal with these people, and he's just mocking them mercilessly. And Alex Jones is losing a fight to a fucking teenager over and over again on a daily basis. It's like, God damn, David Hogg, don't hurt him.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's having fun. I mean, obviously you don't want a bunch of, I'm not saying he's having fun like
right. Yeah, no, he's obviously in a shitty situation, but you know, you gotta, you do make the most of whatever shitty situation you're in. He's done a pretty good job of it.
That's how I feel. I mean, when I'm bummed and stuff, I make joke. My show is fucking about joking about stuff that bums you out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you for coming on here and making up for our call-in show this week, because if you didn't do this, there wouldn't be anything.
No, it's good. You know, I truly think that the Pie and Mick Mulvaney and Bill Emanuel are true scumbags in a way that Street Fight listeners can really appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, we hate all those guys, and you know, there isn't any guys that we're super into. So
sure, but in terms of like narrative, whatever, like they're pretty funny stories and scummy stories or whatever. Both, really.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, it is. I think it's important for I think the people that listen to the show, obviously, they do know what's going on out there, but I do think it's important for Brett and I to know who some of these guys are. And like, I don't totally think it's a waste of time. You know, I feel like I've said this before, but there's shows that your guys' show does it better. You know, the Chapo guys do that sort of media criticism better than we do. So why not just, you know, we do what we do and feel like we can exist in a world where people as a companion to other things.
Oh yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for doing the show, Sam. And definitely we're going to do 1 million more shows together in the future. I mean, only more shows.
Yeah.
So go to give to the District Sentinel Patreon. They are sweet. Can you give them the address?
Patreon.com/District Sentinel.
And give to them so you can see the video of Sam Sachs punching the shit out of a guy. I've seen it. It's a knockout punch, and it's worth seeing.
Yeah, we're hoping to release that video when our Patreon hits $5,000. Basically, Sam Sachs decked some asshole in New Orleans, and it was caught on tape.
It's beautiful. It is I have seen the tape. Brett has seen the tape, and it's terrific. Actually, you know what? And I'm going to say this. I know this sounds bad. I let my wife see it because my wife looked at you guys, and she thought Sam Sachs was like a really like normal square dude. And I'm like, that motherfucker is not. He punched a guy out, and he smokes more weed than almost anybody I've ever met.
I think let's not. I smoke.
Well, I'm saying he thought that she thought you were like out of control because you dress like an insane person. I think. So she was already like Sam's nuts.
I've been thinking about that, Brian. I think. Well, first of all, you were complaining about doing 2 shows in like 2 weeks. We did like two shows in 3 nights.
Again, I wouldn't have done that.
Columbus. Also, I think I forgot my comb on that trip. So,
well, no, you were just stoned, and you were wearing like
cat laser shirt.
And the thing that messes you up is that Sam looks you know what I mean? Like he does.
He really pissed me off, actually, because I was like, man, we're in Ohio, you know, we're in the Midwest. What are you trying to like dress up like the whatever? Like we're trying to like fucking Also, you know, we kind of got like a fucking scummy aesthetic going on. I don't know.
No,
we were doing a show that night in the fucking place where Matt Chrisman passed out in the corner, and what are you gonna fucking wear an Armani suit to that shit? Get out of here, Sam Sachs.
I mean, I mean, I can't really talk shit because I mean, I wear a hat first of all, so that means I never have to do anything with my head, and like all that's expected of me is the boots and the jeans and some kind of a shirt, you know, a t-shirt or a flannel, you know. But Brett also, luckily for me, dresses to match sort of me in a way, you know, like a louder version of me. So I don't have to worry about him upstaging me. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I always have to. I mean, he is obviously the better looking of us. So it's very obvious that he will upstage me in that department. But no, I mean, I don't think you look wild. I think you are wild, Sam, and you smoke a decent amount of weed. I like to bust your beats about, like, my wife just thought you looked like you were going crazy out here, and I was just like, nah, he's fine. She's like, does he need anything? I'm like, he's fine.
It's the way of the road.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing fine. We did 2 shows in 2 days in New York, but I was melting down for a different reason. So I looked crazy. But for some reason, when I get on stage, I snap in and I turn into like a normal person. But yeah, we got kicked out of the hotel, so I was melting down in New York. And we did a show on Friday and a show on Sunday. And like the Sunday show, I was just a fucking mess.
Oh, man. Well, fucking New York, of all places, they shouldn't kick you out of a hotel for getting stoned.
I know. That's why I just was like, I'm not using the discount this time. I'm paying full price. Come and get me, motherfuckers. I'm a customer now. Well, Sam, thanks for calling in. Donate to their Patreon. Their bonus show is great. And peace, everybody. I said the peace thing like Brett does. That's pretty sweet of me.